Hi everyone, welcome to my channel International Storyteller. In this channel you will find true horror stories worldwide. These stories are for entertainment purposes only. In this video, I will tell you the story of one of the most haunted universities in America. This university is the University of Montevallo. Montevallo is a city in the Alabama state of the United States of America. Studying at this university is a dream for many young women who want to acquire skills that will enable them to become self-sufficient. In October of 1896, a girls' school was opened in the state of Alabama, which is called Alabama's Girls' Industrial School. This girls' industrial school focuses on training young women to become teachers, musicians, artists, and many other professional skills. In 1911, the school changed its name to Alabama's Girls Technical Institute. In 1923, the school became a degree-granting institution after changing its name to Alabama State College for Women. Then the faculty and board members accepted the fact that in order for the school to grow, it would have to lose its designation as a girls' school. So, on January 15, 1957, the state legislature changed the name of the school to Alabama State College. Today, the university has the distinction of being ranked by U.S. News and World Report as a Tier 1 master's level institution. Though the University of Montevallo was one of the finest institutes in America, why is it considered to be one of the most haunted universities in the entire state of America? In order to know this, let us hear the haunted story of the University of Montevallo. The first building at the University of Montevallo was built in 1823. This building is the oldest building on the campus of the University of Montevallo. It was originally a private residence, and it is known as King House. In the early 1800s, the place on which the university is now located was owned by a wealthy merchant named Edmund King. He was born in the U.S. state of Virginia. He married Nancy Reagan in 1812 in Griffin, a city in Georgia. In 1817, Edmund King moved his wife Nancy and their children to the community that would come to be known as Montevallo. In 1823, Edmund King built a house with brick in the form of a federal-style building and named this house the King House. He and his family had lived for 6 years. However, in 1842, his wife Nancy died at the age of 49. He again married his second wife in 1848, but she died in 1850. Both of Edmund King's wives are buried in the small cemetery next to the King House. It is said that Edmund King spent hours walking around the graves, sometimes forgetting to eat. When Edmund King became old, the Civil War started in America. He was one of the wealthiest people at the start of the Civil War in America. If the Union troops occupy the town, he does not want his fortune to be in the hands of their enemy. So he buried all his money and gold under the ground behind his house to save it from Union troops. Unfortunately, King died on June 28, 1863, at the age of 82. He died before the end of the American Civil War. However, after a few years, people started seeing the ghostly figure of Edmund King wander around with a lantern and a shovel. People believed that he was looking for the gold that he had buried under the ground. Sometimes, his spirit takes the form of a ball of light flying around the area between the graveyard and the place where he buried his gold. The children and grandchildren of Edmund King also started seeing strange activity inside the King House. For years, they have experienced cold spots in Edmund King's bedroom. On stormy nights, Edmund King's children also claimed to have seen weird lights in the dark corners of Edmund King's bedroom. They also heard the clinking sounds of coins. The most strange or unusual occurrence inside the King House happened during a wedding feast that was held inside the mansion. A young girl who was a bridesmaid was roasting a pig for the wedding feast. When she was trying to cut a piece of the roasted pig, a high-pitched sound came out of the roasted pig. After hearing that scary, loud sound, everyone was panicked, and they started to run out of the front door. To this day, no one knows the reason for this strange thing happening during the wedding day. In 1908, the children of Edmund King sold the house to the University of Montevallo. Then, many years later, in 1976, students and teachers started to encounter the ghostly figure of Edmund King. One night, they decided to wait after nightfall to see if they could catch sight of the ghost of Edmund King. At midnight, they started seeing a shadowy figure crawling around the outside of the house. Everywhere this ghostly figure went, it suddenly got very dark. The strange incident happening in King House is that when the ghost of Edmund King starts roaming inside the house, the books on the table won't balance and fall to the ground. Another scary story about King House is that, one day, while some students were playing baseball, the ball broke into the King House building. But when they entered the house to search for the ball, they saw the ghostly figure of Edmund King holding a lantern and, with a ghostly voice, ordered them to get out of his house. People who are standing near the kitchen of the King House have reported getting a bad feeling. One evening, a young man and woman were walking around the building of the King House. The young man was staring into the windows of the King House. While he was looking into one of the kitchen windows, he felt someone touching his shoulder. He thought that the woman who came with her was trying to get his attention. But when he turned around, he was shocked to see that the woman was standing far away from where he was standing. The next building at the University of Montevallo that is considered to be haunted is now known as Reynolds Hall. During the American Civil War, the building was used as a Confederate hospital. The American Civil War was fought between the United States of America and the Confederate States of America, a collection of 11 southern states that left the Union in 1860 and 1861. Many believe that Reynolds Hall is haunted by the ghost of Captain Henry Clay Reynolds, whose duty it was to protect the sick and injured men in the hospital. Captain Reynolds knows that their enemy Union troops were about to attack the Briarfield Iron Works, which was a very valuable smelting facility for the Confederates. So Captain Reynolds and his troops decided to leave Montevallo and go 8 miles to Briarfield to join their other troops. Unfortunately, he left the wounded soldiers in Reynolds Hospital unguarded. When the Union Army came through, they killed all the wounded Confederate soldiers laying in the hospital. Captain Reynolds returns from Briarfield and discovers that all his fellow wounded troops were massacred. He regretted not staying in Montevallo to protect the wounded men. The bodies of the murdered men were buried in the King Cemetery. After that incident, Captain Reynolds said that he would never go from Reynolds Hall again, and so he never left that place. After the Civil War is over, Captain Reynolds supports in converting the hospital building into a girls' industrial school. Then he became the first president of the girls' industrial school. Later, some critics at that time claimed that Captain Reynolds was corrupted and was forcibly removed as president from the university. Because of the shame that he was forcibly removed as president from the school, he committed suicide. After his death, Reynolds' spirit was filled with feelings of anger and started to haunt the Reynolds Hall building. For many years, students and staff members have started seeing paranormal activities in Reynolds Hall. Late at night, the doors and windows of the building open and close by themselves. Students walking through the building at night felt very cold in some parts of the building for no reason. Sometimes people have felt a gust of wind blowing inside the building when all the doors are closed. Many students actually claim that Reynolds' ghostly figure has followed them around the campus late at night. The best-known ghostly activity in Reynolds Hall involves the portrait of Captain Henry Clay Reynolds, who was the first president of the school. The most scary part is that when maintenance people at the universities started to notice Reynolds' portrait had been moved from its original position. They will take it down and move it back to its original place. But after a few days, Reynolds' portrait started to move again around the building. The next building at the University of Montevallo that is believed to be haunted is Palmer Hall, which is an auditorium. The ghostly presence at Palmer Hall is the spirit of Dr. Walter Trumbauer. The ghost of Dr. Trumbauer haunted the people that came into the Palmer Hall building. If someone has ever felt their hair stand up while performing drama at Palmer Hall, then it is believed to be done by the ghost of Dr. Trumbauer. When Dr. Trumbauer was alive, in 1928, he founded the Drama Festival at the University of Montevallo. So he was very interested in converting the Palmer Hall building and its long auditorium for a drama festival. He also helped in designing the Palmer Hall Auditorium. After Dr. Trumbauer's death, his spirit is angry because the building was not named after him. Thus, Dr. Trumbauer's restless spirit is most active during the performance of drama. His ghost will wander backstage and appear and disappear as students get ready. This scary incident causes the performers to become even more nervous and confused than they were before walking on stage. The next haunted building at the University of Montevallo is called the Hansen Hall Women's Residence. A woman known as the Lady of Hansen, who was once a strict housemother, is believed to be haunting the Hansen Hall Women's Residence. Many believe that her spirit is still watching over the young women staying in the Hansen Hall Women's Residence building. Her ghost has also been seen walking down the halls and inside students' rooms to make sure that everything is as it should be. Students who are studying late at night feel like they are being watched by some unseen entity. This ghost also haunts students who are not sleeping late at night. The ghost of the housemother often grabs coffee cups and dishes that are misplaced or dirty. One student said that she left her coffee mug on her table, but found it missing a few moments later. Then, after a few weeks, the coffee mug reappeared in the same location above the table. There are many conflicting stories as to who the Hansen ghost might be. Some say she is a former housemaid who never abandoned her role. Nobody knows the actual woman who is hunting the Hansen Hall Women's Residence. But the majority of residents believe the ghost to be the woman shown in the painting hanging on the wall of the Hansen Hall Women's Residence. The painting greets students and newcomers alike with a serious and unwelcoming face. Many believe the ghost of the Lady of Hansen was an evil spirit that haunted students who broke the rules of the residence building. This is why many students were scared to break any rule or regulation of the building. The last and most famous ghost story of the University of Montevallo takes place at the old main residence hall building, which was opened in 1897. The ghost of the old main residence hall is so famous that it has been featured on television programs and radio shows. What is the story behind the main residence hall building? In order to know this, let us continue hearing the story. Once, a student named Kandis Cunningham lived in one room on the 4th floor of the main residence hall. Late at night, on February 4, 1908, Kandis and her friends were using a burner to make hot chocolate in her room. This was against the rules, but Kandis and her friends were doing it anyway. They ignored the 9:30 p.m. bell, signaling them to go to sleep, and at 10 p.m., the final bell rang. They tried to quickly stop making chocolate and put the equipment away. But one of her friends accidentally hit the burner that was used to make the chocolate. It spilled the fuel from the burner and then to the bed where Kandis Cunningham was sitting wearing a nightgown. First, the bed caught fire, and it spread to Kandis Cunningham's nightgown. She began to panic and ran down the hallway, screaming for help. But you should know that running is the worst thing you can do when you're on fire. You're supposed to lay on the ground and roll around. But unfortunately, Kandis didn't know that. She ran up and down the hallway screaming for help, and this only increased the flames on her body. Kandis' friends were unable to do anything to help her. The flames grew larger and larger, completely burning her body. After that, Kandis was taken to a local hospital, where she died 2 days later, on February 6, 1908. She was just 17 years old at the time of her death. Ever since her death, the ghost of Kandis has started haunting the 4th floor of the old main residence hall. Students living on that floor have reported hearing the scary screams of a girl crying through the hallways. They also heard footsteps running up and down the hall when no one was there. Late at night, some have even heard a girl's voice crying for help. Students could still smell the bad smell of burned flesh on the 4th floor several days later. Some students have felt a gust of wind inside the building when all the doors and windows were closed. Late one night, a girl who was staying in Kandis' old room heard noises outside her door. When she opened the door, she was shocked to see a scary blackened figure covered in flames running down the hall. The girl immediately closed the door, but when she turned back, she saw her bed on fire. The next morning, she left the university and never returned. At present, Kandis' room is unoccupied. Supposedly, no one could stay there very long because of the scary screams heard from inside the room. But this is not the end of the story. The strangest and most scary thing is the wooden door of Kandis' old room. Right after Kandis' death, her friends started seeing the image of a scary face appear on the wooden door. The image of the face seems to be a woman's face, whose hair was on fire, and the flames were towards up. The maintenance people also claim that they saw the image too. A few years later, they decided to put the wooden door in storage, located in the basement of the school. The school administrator had the door replaced, but the scary burning face began appearing in the new door. They replaced the door numerous times, but every time, the image of the face came back in the wood. All the girls residing in the main residence hall were so freaked out that they eventually removed the door and put it in a storage room. Even today, the Kandis Room has no door, and none of the girls at Montevallo University will stay in the room. Until now, the Kandis Room has remained vacant.